Hey, thanks for checking out the channel, everybody. Tobin here with you, and coming at you about 24 hours since the 24 hours tweet that Damian Lillard was supposed to be traded. So I figured I'd hop on here. It's definitely been a much different day of fodder. Last night's fodder was so much more fun. I enjoyed that. You know, made my row your boat song today. And now it's all like, oh, there's no talks with the Heat. Woj today. I was listening to on the way home Low Post. He's like, oh, Woj's update. I was like, oh, cool. And so I saw his update was like, nah, nothing's imminent. I was like, mother, great, thanks. But apparently he's saying that, Miami and Portland haven't engaged, which is a weird thing. I don't really understand this non-engagement thing. Like, are the Heat really at a point where, Cronin's ducking their calls? Like, can they not email? Like, I guess, I'm interested in the workings on that. So he had that report from Woj. There was also something that came out from Chris Haynes that had said that the Heat, he had talked to somebody on the Heat side, is what he said, and that the Heat haven't had contact with the Blazers since Vegas, that they tried to set up a one-on-one. We've heard this, where they tried to get some kind of talks with the Blazers on what the Blazers want, and that never happened. And now I think the one that has Heat fans the most crazy right now is this pitch from Windhorst, where Windhorst basically put it as the Miami Heat are not desperate at all for a trade in Damian Lillard. I don't think that the Heat and Trailblazers have engaged in talks almost on any level for quite some time, but that could change very quickly. And then Barry Jackson added on to this, and he had said that I sent this windy explanation to an involved source today, and he was told it was 100% right. And Barry also added this: Anthony Chang and I and others have kept reporting Portland disinterested in engaging with the Heat all summer. Question I had is why the Heat hasn't kept calling them. I don't know. I don't know. Like, is Andy Ellisberger like a telemarketer to Cronin? I don't know what's going on there, or the texts, or why they can't get anything going. It is a little bit weird, but it's also one of these things that's interesting because we've heard mystery teams, we've heard Toronto kind of thrown about there. So if there are all these numerous talks with numerous teams, then like where did all that stuff go if the Heat aren't engaged in any of that stuff? That's the thing that's a bit strange there. So I'm trying not to get too crazy about this because we were so high and mighty yesterday. I don't really know what right now is the big update from this, other than maybe we weren't engaged as close. The one thing I'd find strange about it, though, is like, man, Damian Lillard was a little bit like active on social media yesterday, making it seem like something was coming close. But I will say this: I want to get my feelings out on this as far as the Heat, because I haven't put a ton of thought into what if the Heat F this up? What if the Heat don't get Damian Lillard? Because I don't want the rationale to come out after this and be like, well, Damian Lillard's 33 and he makes $200 million and all. Let me tell you something, dude. The Miami Heat have been waiting for this for a very long time. They've been waiting for the star who wants to force his way here, who says, I only want to go there. You have a center in Bam Adebayo who's very close with Damian Lillard. And you have Jimmy Butler. Reports were earlier in the year, in the summer, that he really wants the Heat to go after Damian Lillard as well. You also have the fact that Jimmy Butler just turned 34 years old last week. And I don't know how many more Jim VP summers and springs and summers you're expecting, where this guy's got to carry the entire load and shock people every single year. It would be nice for him to have a reliable scoring teammate who could give you 30, 40 on a given night, where maybe he has to go and defend the best player, and same with Bam. So I say this because if the Heat aren't desperate for Damian Lillard, if the Heat really are trying to play a game of chicken with the Portland Trailblazers, and that ends up with him being on the Toronto Raptors, or ends up with him, God forbid, on Philadelphia or Milwaukee or Boston because you got cocky, you screwed up royally if that does happen. If that does happen, because you better be damn sure. I don't know, and I don't like. It's hard it's hard to go about this in a full scope because it doesn't sound like there's offers or anything. We know the one thing that we basically, I guess, are clear on is that the Blazers don't love Tyler Hero. Okay, fine. But if the Heat haven't moved over every stone and moved heaven and earth to try and find somebody who will flip Tyler Hero into something that is better or more attractive to the Trailblazers, then they screwed up. If they allow this to happen and he goes to a rival when he clearly wants to go to you screwed up. This can't end with you trying to rationalize why you didn't get Damian Lillard, because honestly, dude, if you're not getting desperate for Damian Lillard, you better hope like hell that Nikola Jovic is going to turn into Joker. You better hope that the Serbian Terminator is going to show up and contribute for you this year. You better hope like hell. And it's not that I don't love the Heat team. It's not that I don't like the Heat team without Damian Lillard. But as much as I like the team, and I do like the team, they've been coming up short. And normally we're looking at the rest of the roster by the end of it, and we're not looking at Jimmy, we're not looking at Bam, and we're wondering, well, what can take this team over the top? Come on, dude. Damian Lillard's averaging over 32. Like, that guy, he's a killer. He's a sniper, and he wants to be here. And, Bam was a little irked. I think he was irked. I'm not like reporting that, but like you could look at his social media behavior afterwards. Dude was irked when they didn't get Donovan Mitchell. And that was like supposedly a whole, they weren't that interested and Danny Ainge wouldn't negotiate with them. It's like, well, why is it that the Heat seem to keep getting into these issues of organizations don't want to negotiate with them? Like, why does that keep happening where these teams don't want to engage? And the thing that I've mentioned a couple times in the lead up to this is like, I hope the Heat don't get to a situation where it's like Jimmy in Minnesota, where Pat and Tom Thibodeau, got into it and he told them, get your house in order and, go bleep yourself. And Jimmy Butler ended up on the Sixers. And so this should be as much of a layup as it gets. Even, Damian Lillard publicly has done all he can do. Bam Adebayo publicly has done all he can do. Jimmy Butler really hasn't done anything, but is at least, we think, reported to the front office like, yeah, that's definitely a guy that I would like to play with. I would be okay with Kyle Lowry being dealt out if that is the case. So if the Heat aren't desperate for Damian Lillard and they lose out on this because they were hoping, hey, we could get him for Lowry's expiring and something else and they can take it or leave it because nobody else is offering. I've said this, like, I don't believe the Blazers should be left here fleeced. I believe they should get good stuff for Damian Lillard, but I don't want the Heat to be in this spot, or I don't want them to be under the impression of, hey, if you come out of this thinking to yourself, we shouldn't have given up that for Damian Lillard, there's not a lot of guys outside of 13 and 22 that I'm going to look at and say, oh yeah, that I can understand that. There's not. But we'll see. I also don't want to overreact to a lot of this stuff because a lot of this has been just gobbledygook, dude. It's just been like, oh, well, the Heat don't seem desperate, but that could change quickly. That's what Windhorst said. He did put that caveat at the end, but that could change very quickly. And Woj is like, oh, well, there hasn't been talks yet, but that, of course, that we know that can change at any second. So I do find a lot of today's reporting kind of strange. It's a little bit weird. And also, we know that the Heat don't love leaking stuff. Like, the Heat probably hate the way this is all going. I think it's probably spooked them off a couple of talks before. But this dude right here, this seems like you botched this, you done screwed up. You're gonna have to do some real explaining to this fan base after the way we saw Damian Lillard, and especially the way Damian Lillard went through, to the point of, you don't think that the Heat had a hand in Damian Lillard publicly going out there and saying that he only wants to go to Miami, and then you think about like the public dragging that he kind of took. So all of that being considered, unless like Joe Cronin is sending the Heat to voicemail at every call, you can't blow this. You can't.